Did you know that there is a competitive format where only baby Pokemon are allowed? It's called Little Cup, and the rules are simple. You can only use the first stage in a Pokemon's evolution line, and the maximum level is level 5. This format originates from a game mode in Pokemon Stadium 2, and I think Little Cup is a lot of fun actually. Because everything is level 5, it's actually a very fast-paced format. Items like leftovers and effects like Toxic and Leech Seed that deal a percentage of a Pokemon's health or heal a percentage of a Pokemon's health are less valuable when your health value is only like 20. Most level 5 Pokemon have a very low amount of actual HP in numbers, so these effects are very rarely seen. Stall strategies are not common, slow-paced strategies are not common, and Little Cup tends to be very fast, very aggressive. And the Pokemon you see here are quite novel too. You might expect that the baby Pokemon of top-tier competitive threats are what rise to the top here, but no. You see funny faces like Stunky, the baby form of Skuntank, and Vullaby, baby Mandibuzz. These are the top-tier threats. These are the elite Pokemon. It's a whole different world down in Little Cup. But who are the best of these baby Pokemon? Who are the elite level threats in Pokemon's Little League? It's an incredible question, and this varies from generation to generation. Let's look at every single game in the Pokemon series and determine who is the best of the babies in each of them. Starting off with Generation 1 Little Cup, we have a very interesting format here. Gen 1 Little Cup is very different to other Little Cup formats because there are no items or abilities in Gen 1, and also Gen 1 has different Pokemon you could choose that you can't choose in any other game. For example, Pikachu is legal here because Pikachu is the baby form of its evolution line in Gen 1. Pichu was not created yet, so Pikachu is legal to use. Onix would be a staple of later Little Cup formats, even though it doesn't look like a baby Pokemon. It is legal to use in Little Cup by the rules. It's the first stage in a Pokemon's evolution line. But that's not true in Gen 1, where Steelix doesn't exist yet, so Onix cannot be used. In Gen 1 Little Cup, there are two Pokemon in the S rank, at the very top tier, and they are Diglett and Execute. It's quite an interesting duo, isn't it? Diglett is not surprising to see here actually. Diglett is very fast for a baby Pokemon with an impressive 95 speed, and it has a very good physical move pool with Stab, Earthquake, Body Slam, and Rock Slide. Diglett is fast, threatening, and effective. And Diglett is quite good in later generations too of Little Cup. Diglett is kind of a staple, especially when it gets Arena Trap in Gen 3. Among the babies, Diglett is a good one. And then there's Execute. This is actually pretty unique to Gen 1. Execute is not that prominent in later Little Cup formats, but here, it's probably not too surprising to see this because, as you may know, Exeggutor is one of the best Pokemon in Gen 1 OU. And Execute is actually not too different to Exeggutor. It also has that Grass Psychic typing, which is very good. Psychic is elite in Gen 1, with very few disadvantages to using it. There's no Dark-type Pokemon yet. Bug-type attacks basically don't exist, so nothing's really threatening you as a Psychic type. Ghost-type attacks also don't really exist. And you have access to one of the best moves in Gen 1, Psychic, the special attack, which has a 33% chance to lower the enemy's special stat by 1. That's their special attack and special defense combined into one stat. Execute also has both Sleep Powder and Stun Spore, two of the most excellent status-inflicting moves in the game. Sleep in Gen 1 is elite. It's great in every competitive generation of singles, but in Gen 1 especially, there's very little counterplay to it. And you also have Explosion, which is another outstanding early generation attack that sacrifices your life but deals about a 1 million damage to the enemy and also cancels their turn, because if you faint in these early gens, Gen 1 to 3, you cancel the enemy's turn completely. It's an unbelievable momentum play, so Execute just has everything on it. What an outstanding team slot. It's got Sleep, Explosion, Psychic, Paralysis, and its stats are pretty good for a baby too. I mean, there are better baby Pokemon stats-wise. Diglett's one of them. There's like Abra, who has a very high special stat. But Execute has serviceable stats and an elite move pool, making it a top-tier choice in Gen 1 Little Cup. Between these two Pokemon, it's a bit hard to say which is better. Almost every single Gen 1 Little Cup team has both of these Pokemon on it. They're like auto-includes, so we'll say it's a tie for this one. For Gen 1 Little Cup, there are two kings ruling together as a duo. Diglett and Execute. What an interesting and unexpected duo. Gen 2 Little Cup is where items first came into play in this format, and interestingly, the best item in the game is the Gold Berry, an item that doesn't exist in later games. It's just a berry that restores 30 HP flat when you're at half or less, which obviously is very good when you only have like 27 HP or whatever because you're in level 5. So pretty much every Pokemon just has Gold Berry on them for a free full heal. Something unique about the Little Cup formats is these berries that restore a very low flat amount of HP become really good when you're level 5. The best Pokemon in Gen 2 Little Cup is not as dubious. It is pretty clearly Porygon. Porygon is the only Pokemon in the S rank of Gen 2 Little Cup. Porygon received a new evolution in Gen 2, Porygon 2, which means that Porygon 1 is now considered Little Cup legal. And among these babies, it is pretty damn strong. It has above average stats for a baby Pokemon. And it happens to have a very powerful stab double edge, and unlike other normal types that may abuse stab double edge, it also has good mixed attacking options, making it difficult to switch in against. Its special attack is high with 85 special attack, and Ice Beam and HP Grass happen to hit pretty much everything in Little Cup that would want to come in on double edge, whether that be Onix, Omanite. These normal resistances all get really destroyed by the Ice Beam or HP Grass. Ice Beam even does really good neutral damage to switch-ins like Ghastly. And on top of that, Porygon's really bulky. It gets a lot out of that Gold Berry. It's very hard to actually eliminate a Porygon with the limited amount of fighting types here. There's Mankey, but that's about it. And after consuming the Gold Berry, you have Thief to steal the enemy's Gold Berry and get another heal. So Porygon is just a combination of really bulky, really offensively threatening, and hard to eliminate, as well as stealing items and benefiting again from 2 Gold Berries. It's a very nice combination of things for the format, and Porygon is in an elite status in this Gen 2 Little Cup world. Gen 3 Little Cup is the first Little Cup format where abilities now exist, which give Pokemon all kinds of powerful passive effects. And also the EV system was introduced in Gen 3, making these baby Pokemon a bit more customizable. And Gen 3 Little Cup has the return of Diglett to the forefront. Diglett is yet again an elite status Pokemon in this format. And that's partially because of all the strength it had back in Gen 1, the high speed, the good stab, earthquake, good physical coverage. But now Diglett also has the ability Arena Trap, which is able to trap the enemy, preventing them from switching out, unless they are flying or levitating. This is one of the best abilities in the whole game, and an incredible enhancement to an already pretty solid baby Pokemon. You're going to be able to trap and eliminate anything weak to ground and absolutely snipe things that are struggling against Earthquake. There's also a new item to take advantage of in Gen 3 Little Cup that is quite interesting, the Salac Berry, an all new kind of berry, which raises your speed by 1 stage when you're at 1/4 or less of HP, and Diglett can use Endure to actually live an incoming hit, outrun certain things, and be able to trap and eliminate them. Now Diglett often doesn't need this, it's already one of the fastest thing in the game, but if you happen to be facing Voltorb, Voltorb is faster than you by a little bit. So you can Endure to live their incoming hidden power, or whatever they want to hit you with, eat the berry, and now you outrun them and hit them with a super effective Earthquake. Upon consuming the berry, you can also thief their berry and then heal if it is a citrus berry. And citrus berry is basically the renamed gold berry. It has the exact same effect of restoring 30 health when you're at half max HP or less. So Diglett is elite here for clear reasons. But guess who else is S tier in Gen 3 Little Cup? A new face, Wailmer, the baby form of Wailord. This guy is an incredibly powerful baby. Obviously, baby Pokemon usually have really low base stats, like an attack of 70 is considered a pretty high stat down here, but Wailmer, unbelievably, has a 130 base HP. That is very, very good, even among fully evolved Pokemon. So Wailmer has an uncharacteristically high HP stat for a baby Pokemon, and even though its defenses are lacking, it's not that bad compared to other babies, and the HP is doing such heavy lifting that you can really get a huge amount out of Wailmer defensively. Wailmer also has the move Water Spout, which is an incredible move on this Pokemon. This is a move that deals more damage the higher your HP is. So if you're at 100% HP, it's dealing the maximum power of 150. And because Little Cup has these berries that fully heal you completely, they heal you all the way back up. It's actually very easy to get Water Spout off, because you're either faster than them and Water Spout activates and you haven't taken damage yet. You're dealing a significant amount off the back of a very good special attack too, of base 70, very serviceable. Or if they hit you, you just heal back and Water Spout is 150 power again. It's fantastic. You have Icy Wind, which is both ice coverage and also a way to lower speed, making more Pokemon vulnerable to that Water Spout. And you even have Self-Destruct as that excellent form of self-elimination that deletes the enemy's turn and also hits specially defensive Pokemon that might want to switch in on Water Spout or other, maybe a water resistance coming in. So Wailmer is kind of a god in Gen 3 Little Cup. It's really, really good for a baby Pokemon with above average moves and stats and everything. Now, Gen 4 Little Cup is actually one of the most beloved Little Cup formats in history. There's a lot to like about this format. In fact, it's one of my favorite formats of all time. I really like Gen 4 Little Cup because Gen 4 Little Cup introduced a bunch of new baby Pokemon to the game that are really fun. There's also more options available because of the physical special split. It's very fast-paced. It's very diverse. And notably, they also changed how Citrus Berry works in Gen 4. Instead of healing a flat 30% HP, Citrus Berry will heal 1/4 of your max HP. So this is much better on fully evolved Pokemon with higher values of HP in the hundreds. So they will actually heal a substantial amount. But for these baby Pokemon, percentages are very bad. You want flat amounts of HP. So actually, the new Elite Berry is the Oran Berry, which only restores 10, but that's still a lot for these babies. That's about half of their HP usually. And in Gen 4 Little Cup, there are two kings. There are two elite level Pokemon. Those are Munchlax and Gligar. Munchlax is a new baby Pokemon introduced in Gen 4, and it is quite significantly better than most others in terms of its stats alone. Similarly to Wailmer, you have a very, very above average 135 base HP. This is way higher than most baby Pokemon in the game. And on top of that, you actually have even better stats than Wailmer overall. With 85 special defense, much higher than Wailmer's. 40 defense is decent, all things considered. And 85 attack is also very, very good for a baby Pokemon. You only have 5 speed, but considering how excellent all your other stats are, it's totally fine to sacrifice a little bit on the speed side of things. Top of that, Munchlax has the ability Thick Fat, which is amazing, reducing the damage of incoming fire and ice type attacks. So defensively and offensively, this Pokemon is just so much going for it. And the Pokemon's move pool is also incredible. Return is, of course, just a straightforward normal stab option. It's just double edge if you prefer more damage as well. Superpower is an unbelievable form of fighting coverage with 120 power. Has the drawback of -1 attack and defense, but that's well worth it for such a high power coverage option. You got the elemental punches, which are physical now. Ice Punch, Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, whatever you need. Munchlax has Earthquake too, which is amazing. Rock Slide if you want rock coverage. And also, Munchlax has Pursuit, which is now a physical attack. And Pursuit is not only dark coverage, Pursuit is able to trap enemies. It attacks them while they're switching out and deals more damage as they're switching out. So you can use Pursuit to trap Ghost or Psychic types like Abra or Ghastly, which are everywhere here. Very common in Gen 4 Little Cups. Munchlax is obviously just an elite Pokemon. And there's also Gligar. Gligar, back in Gen 3, was a fully evolved single-stage Pokemon. Now it's a baby Pokemon because Gliscor was released in Gen 4. And Gligar is unsurprisingly also quite above average for a baby Pokemon, considering it used to not be a baby Pokemon. It has a ground flying typing, which is really, really good. We're all familiar with Landorus Therian and Gliscor. It's no surprise that a baby Pokemon with this typing would also be really nice. Gligar also has access to Stealth Rock, which is a new entry hazard in Gen 4 that is really good even in Little Cup. Even though it's dealing percentage-based damage, you are significantly threatening Pokemon of certain types and dealing good damage still, even though the percentage of health you're dealing is less to these babies. It's still good. And Gligar also has very good stats for a baby Pokemon, notably 105 defense, good speed, good overall bulk, and a usable 75 attack. Not as high as Munchlax, but still very good. And this is a much faster Pokemon. Gligar has Earthquake, Aqua Tail, U-Turn, Stealth Rock, really, really good physical move pool. U-Turn is especially fantastic in Gen 4 Little Cup. A very fast-paced format where pivoting out is a really good momentum play. Gligar can use a Choice Scarf as well to outrun just about everything in the format and do either a fast U-Turn or a fast Earthquake. It's kind of the Landorus Therian of Gen 4 Little Cup, with the Scarf set being the most popular one I saw when I was playing. and the most reliable as well in my experience. And you have Hyper Cutter for what that's worth. It's not that outstanding, but it does come up sometimes. Prevents your attack from being lowered against intimidating Pokemon, so that's good. Generation 5 is when Little Cup changed forever, and a few staples of the format were introduced. One of these staples was the new item Eviolite, an item that can only be used by not fully evolved Pokemon. If you are not fully evolved and you hold an Eviolite, your defense and special defense are multiplied by 1.5x. This is an excellent item on Pokemon that can use it effectively. Chansey is the most famous example, a pretty good not fully evolved Pokemon with fairly similar stats to its fully evolved form of Blissey that gets a significant amount of value out of this Eviolite, which is a really, really powerful item. In Little Cup, nothing is fully evolved. The whole point is that you're using baby Pokemon, so Eviolite is by far the best item in the game in Little Cup now, because you can just get 1.5x defense and special defense flat. And on most Pokemon, that is going to be the best thing you can do, the best item you can hold. There are still Pokemon that use Choice Scarf or the berries. The berries can still be strong, and Gen 5 also introduced the Berry Juice, which is a little bit better than an Orange Berry. Berry Juice will restore a flat 20 HP when at half health. Not as good as the Gold Berry or the Citrus Berry of the earlier gens, but it's now the new best healing berry, if you want to go that route. But Eviolite is by far the most popular and common item in Gen 5 Little Cup. Gen 5 Little Cup also introduced the new king of baby Pokemon, the most elite of all baby Pokemon historically, and that is Mienfoo, the baby version of Mienshao. Mienfoo is the best Pokemon in Gen 5 Little Cup and a staple of Little Cup moving forward. Little Cup really slowed down from Gen 5 onwards. Every Little Cup format before Gen 5 is extremely fast-paced. And don't get me wrong, Little Cup is still very fast-paced, even today. But it's slowed down significantly with the introduction of Eviolite, which just gave flat bulk to everything. But also, the ability Regenerator did the same. Regenerator was released in Gen 5, and it's an ability famous in competitive singles in general. It's one of the best abilities in the whole game, that restores 1/3 of your max HP every single time you switch out. Mienfoo happens to be an elite abuser of this Eviolite Regenerator combo. Enhancing your defensive bulk and giving you this reliable form of healing is elite. Mienfoo's stats aren't particularly impressive, not like Munchlax back in Gen 4. They're good though. The 85 attack is very solid, 65 speed as well, considering your defenses are decent and they're getting buffed by Eviolite. But Mienfoo just happens to have a really good combination of offensive and defensive presence, with this infinite healing ability of Regenerator, the high power stab, high jump kick, U-turn as well for pivoting, which also procs Regenerator itself. That works perfectly and not only keeps up the pace aggressively, but heals you at the same time. You got Knockoff, which isn't even in its buffed form in Gen 5, but is still used here for the high value concept of getting rid of Eviolite on enemies. And Fake Out also comes in handy a lot, because there are a lot of sturdy Pokemon in Gen 5 Little Cups. Sturdy is an ability that acts similarly to Focus Sash, allowing you to live a hit from full. And Sturdy is incredibly powerful in Little Cup because of the berry items. Berry Juice heals that flat 20. So if you hit a Pokemon down to 1 HP, they have Sturdy and they heal all the way back with Berry Juice. Now they get Sturdy again because they're back to full. So Fake Out is very nice, not only for general priority against popular threats like Abra, Vullaby, whatever, but also just to break those Focus Sashes, which are quite common. This is something that has stood the test of time even in Gen 9 Little Cup. This is a staple of Little Cup from here on out. This Eviolite Regenerator and the incredible physical move pool is just perfect for this format. This incredible combination of offensive and defensive pressure. And in fact, in the very next generation, Mienfoo is yet again an S-rank Pokemon in Gen 6 Little Cup. For many of the same reasons. It's just fundamentally so powerful. And in fact, it's a little bit better because it has buffed Knockoff now. Knockoff was buffed in Gen 6 with a power increase and a damage multiplication if you are knocking off an item at the time of attacking. Knockoff became perhaps the best attack in the game in Gen 6. That was a buff to Mienfoo, who has such an option. But Gen 6 Little Cup also saw the birth of another superstar of Little Cup moving forward. Pawniard. Pawniard may have been released in Gen 5, but it really rose to superstardom in Gen 6, where this newly buffed Knockoff became such an elite option. Pawniard is a Dark Steel type, which is a good typing. You are pretty sturdy against a lot of stuff. You actually match up pretty poorly to Mienfoo, unfortunately, but against a lot of other stuff, you're very strong. Pawniard has a respectable 85 attack, which is good. And you might also make the connection between Pawniard and Bishop. because Bishop also got significantly better in Gen 6 OU for the same reason, because of the knockoff buff, and because of the new addition of fairy types to the game. Bishop is a rare dark type that is neutral to fairy and also threatens fairy with Stab Iron Head, which is super effective. And Pawniard does much the same thing. Pawniard's knockoff is a fantastic attack that is even better in Little Cup because the item you're knocking off oftentimes is Eviolite, which is incredibly high value to get rid of. And Iron Head hits all those pesky fairy types, and even a lot of rock. There's a lot of rock types that are very strong too. And you even have Sucker Punch on top of that for a form of priority, which is elite. So Pawniard and Mienfoo are evenly matched in Gen 6 Little Cup at the top of S rank. In Generation 7 Little Cup, Mienfoo and Pawniard are still very popular and central, but there's a new king in town. There's a new Pokemon that rose to the top of S rank as the best Pokemon in Gen 7 Little Cup, and that is Vullaby. Vullaby has always been a pretty powerful baby Pokemon, popular in early generations as well, but in Gen 7 it feels particularly elite. Vullaby has the ability Weak Armor, which, if hit by a physical attack, lowers your defense by 1 but raises your speed by 2. This is very good for Little Cup, because -1 defense isn't actually lowering your defense that much since it's such a low value, but the speed increase is just as significant as it would be in a level 100 format, because, you know, you're outrunning everything just the same. Vullaby is also an incredibly diverse Pokemon. The stats may not look that impressive, it only has 55 attack and special attack, but Vullaby's move pool is kind of unbelievable. You got Defog for utility, some great physical and special attacking options. There's Brave Bird for a high power stab move knockoff for item removal and Dark Stab. You can also run a special set with Nasty Plot and Air Slash Heat Wave as the offensive combo of choice. So Vullaby is a win condition, a support with defog, a pivot, item removal, and you don't know exactly what it's going to do, and you're hesitant to attack into it because it has weak armor and enough natural bulk to live one hit. And Vullaby feels so easy to throw onto a team in Gen 7 Little Cup because it can just save your life or win you the game. It's your win condition, it's your backup plan. You can take a hit with weak armor, outrun whatever threat they've got on the field, and then maybe get a defog as you're forcing them out. You can even bluff with this, you can pretend you have Heat Wave when you don't, pretend to be physical when you're special, whatever. Vullaby is really interesting in how powerful it is. It's not like brute force powerful, but it's got this incredible free speed boost and multiple different sets it can possibly run that all pose a threat in their own way. I think it's a really awesome Pokemon, to be honest. I have a lot of fun using it and even playing against it. In Gen 8 Little Cup, Dexit of course happened. Dexit removed quite a lot of options, the most notable for Little Cup being Pursuit, which was used on various Pokemon to trap important enemies like Abra and Ghastly, and also the removal of Hidden Power reduced coverage options on a lot of Pokemon. In this environment, Vullaby once again rose to the top of S rank as one of the best and most consistent Pokemon here. That's not too surprising to see. But also in the S tier, alongside Vullaby, is Abra. Now, Abra has always been a very powerful Little Cup Pokemon, all the way back in Gen 1 actually. Because Abra actually does have pretty good stats for a baby. It's got 105 special attack, which is quite a bit above average, and a 90 base speed. Its defenses are terrible, but that's to be expected on a glass cannon like this. Abra has always been one of the more elite special attackers of Little Cup. But with the removal of Pursuit, Abra benefits so significantly. Abra gets so much better without having to worry about Pursuit from common Pokemon like Pawniard. And Abra has Magic Guard, which has always been one of its best traits. Magic Guard is amazing in all competitive singles formats, and the main benefit of it here is that it makes you completely immune to hazard damage, allowing you to maintain your focus sash and pretty much get a free live from full HP no matter what, because nothing can break this. No hazards can break it, no residual damage can break it, nothing. So Abra is always this resource in their back pocket that can live on one and defeat you. And now you're not even worried about Pursuit. Abra also happens to get really good coverage in a world where Hidden Power got cut, so in that sense it's almost indirectly buffed. Dazzling Gleam is great to hit the dark types that you can't usually hit. And interestingly, Counter is actually a good option on Abra to deliberately live an incoming dark type attack, survive on 1 HP thanks to your focus sash, and then KO the enemy dark type. It's a great option against an enemy physical Vullaby or an enemy Pawniard or anything trying to threaten you on the physical side. Very cool option there. So Abra got way better in Gen 8 Little Cup. And now here we are in Gen 9, where unfortunately some staples of Little Cup have really been shot in the foot. Pawniard is the Pokemon that suffered the most, because Pawniard no longer has Pursuit ever since Gen 8, and now it no longer even has Knockoff. So the whole reason to use Pawniard has now been deleted. One of the most historically excellent Little Cup Pokemon is now Big Nothing. But at the top of Gen 9 Little Cup are a couple of familiar faces. Mienfoo and Vullaby have risen to the forefront yet again for their fundamentally excellent traits among the babies. It's a slight anticlimax. None of the new Gen 9 Pokemon have risen to these heights that Vullaby and Mienfoo have been on for all these years. The most noteworthy new Pokemon in Gen 9 Little Cup would have to be Glimmet, who is a very, very powerful new baby Pokemon with access to the Toxic Debris ability, which scatters toxic spikes on the field just by getting hit by a physical attack of any kind. There's also Tinkertink, who is quite good, the baby form of Tinkaton. Toad School is another pretty good Gen 9 baby, but none of them hold a candle to the old, reliable Vullaby and Mienfoo. I don't think this is a bad thing, honestly. I've always found that Vullaby and Mienfoo give Little Cup a nice, healthy central presence with all that they do, and the unique ways that they are these central Pokemon. I like Mienfoo, and Vullaby is just a beautiful Pokemon, isn't it? With weak armor, defog, attacks, it could heal, and it also has offensive power. I really like how these are the Pokemon that rise to the top of Little Cup. They are defensive utility Pokemon, but they're also keeping up with the pace of these level 5 children with something else, like a massive power high jump kick or a weak armor boost that makes you a big offensive threat with Stab Brave Bird. Little Cup is a really interesting alternate universe where so many different things are good, so many different concepts are good. A lot of people dislike competitive singles because it can be slow at times. Stall is an archetype that exists that does slow things down significantly. There have infamously been like 800 or 1000 turn games that are genuine, serious competitive games. You can run aggressive teams that mitigate that, but it's a part of competitive singles for sure. The difficulty in making progress sometimes in certain matchups. But Little Cup is always pretty fast paced. Even with Regenerator and Eviolite, everything's smacking each other. You don't have time to just be a straight up defensive wall. That kind of Pokemon doesn't really exist, like a Dondozo. That kind of guy would get eaten alive in Little Cup. If you want to play competitive singles, but you don't like the pace, you don't like the slow gameplay that sometimes comes up, maybe you'd like Little Cup, honestly. Maybe Little Cup is for you. And I've always thought that if Nintendo wants to do an official competitive singles format, maybe Little Cup would be the play, because it is faster paced, and there is even an excuse to use the iconic merchandise selling baby Pokemon in some sort of competitive format. I think that would be a good choice. If you're listening, Pokemon Company shareholders, if you are listening. But anyway, that's the top tier Pokemon in every single generation of Little Cup throughout the years. What do you think of this powerful bunch? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.